And so often we receive help and we just think, well, it was a coincidence, it was an accident. But if we look at it with wonder, then we're more apt to have those things happen in our lives more often, because we call to us that which we resonate to or could resonate to. So if we are thinking of negative things, then that's what's going to happen. But if we are filled with wonder and expecting the positive, then that's what will happen. That's what we will face. And as we go through life living in that way, more people enjoy being around us. We enjoy being around more people who are like that. We are more faith-filled, and we live our lives in such a much more productive way. So that's and when we're filled with wonder, we are like a light. We're light-filled, and so if we look at the people around us who live that way, who everything is wonderful to them, we can see the light around them and within them. And so we can know that the same thing is happening in our lives. So if we have faith at all in God, then we need to exhibit that faith in that way, don't we?
Absolutely. And you talked about something that I'd like us to touch on, and that is we do attract things to ourselves, don't we?
We do.
It's a kind of an interesting process that negative people are usually surrounded by negative people, and they tend to have more negative experiences. Now, that isn't to say that positive people don't have negative experiences. And so often, when people look at Iris, Freelander, or Mike Costello, they'll say, oh, well, your lives are so blessed. Well, in fact, we know differently, don't we? We've had our challenges and our difficulties, but the philosophy that we teach really is more than just a philosophy that we teach. It is a way of life, and it is a way of attuning ourselves to the limitless potential of the divine. And when we do that, then we attract to ourselves everything that we need to meet all of the experiences of life. But if we fail to do that, we will continue, if we fail to constantly be reattuning the vibration of what we're attracting, it's very easy to get into the process of attracting negativity, isn't it? And surrounding ourselves by negative influences and experiences and thoughts and feelings, and every aspect of our being then becomes almost, just as I speak about it, I think about gloom. And so often when we talk to people, their lives are filled with gloom and doom. And it is a process of mind, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And more people, I think, are becoming more positive in their approach to life and more accepting. And I think that we're in the midst of a consciousness shift here on Earth. And people describe that in different ways according to their background and their religious convictions and personal convictions. But everyone agrees, yes, time has escalated, and time is consciousness. So our consciousness has escalated. And so everyone agrees that something is going on, and some of us might not know exactly what it is, and some of us might think we know what it is. But whatever it is, people are aware of that. And more people are praying in a positive, concerted way, which is a wonderful thing, because as you know, I have been leading meditation groups for ever so many years, for 37 years, and you can see the light garnered from a church service or a meditation service. And if anyone is just slightly have a tendency to be clairvoyant, they can see that light, and if they're not, they can still see that light. So the light goes, and then the light is gathered and the light goes out. And more people are praying and meditating together in groups. And it's part, I think, of the culture of the day. And also is something we're just simply prompted to do because it's a good thing to do. It's making a difference in the world. And there might be those listening who would say, well, look at all the wars going on. Look at all the terrible things happening. Well, there's always been wars. There's always been terrible things. But we see more and more people aware of the goodness and aware of the need to lift and send out light. And as they do, it works.
And as they send out that light, it changes the vibratory rate not only around them but in the entire planet. And I think this is a good time to be alive and a wonderful time to be alive. And yet it's so easy for us, I think, to sink into that negativity. Just as you were speaking about being light-filled and resonating, and the fact that time is moving much more rapidly, I was thinking about the fact that at this point in time, we have the ability to send information around the globe with such speed. And that really has been the hallmark or the indicator, I think, of the fact that these are different times, these are wonderful times, but that movement of information just gives us on the physical plane a little snapshot of what's happening on the inner planes with the availability that we have of constantly receiving information. And when, of course, just last Sunday at church, someone was talking with me and they were saying, 100 years ago, if someone would look at, and this individual was showing me a photograph, and they were showing a photograph of, really happened to be of some people that we knew, but this individual was pointing out that within the photograph had such, in the background were trees, and the beauty of those trees was so easily seen down to the minute detail of the leaf that was seen. And he had said, 100 years ago, if we had shown this to someone, a color photograph of this resolution and this kind of information, they would have, it would have been mind-boggling. Well, that's just a little snippet of, but a good example, I think, of the fact that information and technology we think of so often on the physical realm are certainly with us, and they're certainly blessings and bring us good things, but it's happening on all levels. It's happening on the mental level, it's happening in the spiritual realm, it's happening in the physical realm, and all of that's coming together in a wonderful way that allows this information to just move so quickly. And if we look at what it's going to be like 5 years from now and 10 years from now and 20 years from now, the concept is wonderful. That is just an issue of wonder right there. I think to know that those things are happening and there's no stopping it.
Yes, and that we're living in this time of wonder and might and power, and there is so much happening that we're not aware of. But as we are aware of what's going on, then if we keep the positive attitude, we add to the mass consciousness, to the global brain in a positive way, and more people are doing that.
The mass consciousness is the collective. Of course, I think of Star Trek and all these things, but we're not really Trekkies, are we? We're talking about the fact that there is a connectiveness of mind and of thought and of spirit in this entire planet, and probably beyond this planet, in a wonderful and magnificent way.
Yes, and we are connected beyond this planet, and we're living in the third dimension. Everyone accepts that we're living in the third dimension. Well, the next dimension is the fourth. And part of this shift that people are feeling, and part of the mass consciousness, global brain aspect of being, is that we're going into the fourth dimension. And as we go into the fourth dimension, more wonder is available to us because we're seeing more clearly, we're seeing more clairvoyantly, we're seeing more with greater perception. And as we do, then we can see into the fourth dimension. And if we look at it like that, it makes sense, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that resonance, that energy, that divine presence is being so much more felt and lived in, and is so much more manifest.
Yes, a lot of teachers talk about the aha moment. Oh, that's an aha moment. Well, that's an aha moment for a lot of people when they realize that we are living in this time of change. And it's not just that we're living in the time of great change, it's that the energies are available to us from the higher dimensions more than ever before, and they're becoming more and more available to us. So as you were saying, we have no idea what's going to be happening next month, next year, and so forth into the future, but we don't have any idea because we don't know the marvels and the wonder of the next dimension that's more and more available to us consciously and subconsciously and superconsciously daily and into the future.
And all of that just leads us to be more in awe and wonder of what life is. We'd like to pause at this point of the program and offer you the opportunity to receive some literature so that you can continue to study the ideas and concepts we're sharing with you.
We would like to offer you the opportunity to receive one of these free booklets to further your understanding of the New Thought message of confident living. Each month we will feature a different booklet, which will be mailed to you free and postage paid. Simply address your request to Confident Living at P.O. Box 7726, Long Beach, California, 90807.
So these changes that are happening are all really good, aren't they?
They are wonderfully good, and some of us are afraid because the changes are so rapid, and we fear that which we don't understand and don't know. But if we would look at all of life, is that how can we ever understand all there is there, and then we would be less filled with fear for facing the future and facing the present, for that matter. Because if we're filled with wonder and awe of the potential that life offers, and the potential today is so great, the potential today is so outstanding, and the potential today is so much more than mankind has ever before known. Because we've reached this great shift of consciousness. And so we can understand and see more. And I think that's why the babies who are coming in are so much more alert and aware, because they are living from their supraconsciousness aspect of being more fully.
Mm-hmm. The mind sciences, the psychology and the psychiatry and the spiritual realm and the metaphysical and all of that is coming together in a wonderful and magnificent way. And of course, what we are a part of, the New Thought movement, has at its core the importance and the value of this unity of purpose and this connectiveness of persons and beings and life with the divine. And after all, that's what the way shower Christ Jesus was talking about, that the divine presence is in our midst, always and everywhere, and is everywhere accessible to us. And because of that, we have limitless potential. And that is a wonderful thing. I just get real excited about that whole idea and thought, because we are shifting our consciousness. But in order to allow ourselves to shift that consciousness, we do need to let go of our fears, and we need to let go of our judgment, and we need to let go of our negative feelings about all of so many of these things that are happening. And so often now, as new things come, the immediate response of the old guard or the traditional is to immediately talk about the slippery slope and how dangerous these things are. Well, I think the slippery slope is a wonderful thing, and we need to slip and slide a little bit more in a lot of areas. And so we need to let go of our fears, because if in fact we let our fears rule what we did 100 years ago and 200 years ago, but certainly within this last generation, we wouldn't fly, and we wouldn't travel at high speeds, and we wouldn't do a lot of things, and we certainly wouldn't have the medical technology that we have today. And so a lot of these things that we experience in the shifting of consciousness and in the wonder of life today need to be embraced in our openness of mind. And sometimes it's pretty hard to open our minds.
It's hard to open our minds, and to reasonable things, and it's hard to accept really a futuristic thing. There was somewhere this week I saw, it must have been on TV, where in China, I think it's China, they have a train that goes over the tracks, a foot off the tracks, and it's done with magnets. And did you see that? Well, it's very interesting because these things are going to be happening more and more. And I don't think it was in my dreams that I saw it. But I remember a clairvoyant friend of mine who said many years ago that she saw into the future, and soon after the turn of the century, which means like this century, this 2003 or perhaps next year, and sometime in the very near future, the automobiles will be run a foot off the ground, and that would be, they would be running on tracks with magnets, like which is the same thing that is now happening already in China with the trains. And so these things, and you were saying earlier that we have no conception of what is in store for us because everything has moved so fast, so quickly in our lifetimes. And we know that things are moving ever so much more quickly. So we can expect to see the cars running like that, and they will be guided so that you don't have to put your hands on the wheels to guide them, because they'll be automatically magnetized and driven in a way that we can't imagine right now. But we know that it's going to happen. And it's just like the fuel, the fossil fuel will be obsolete. And there's lots of people who think, no, that's a terrible thing, that it will be obsolete, because look at all the money that's in fossil fuel. Well, it will be, and the other resources, natural resources, will be used. So when we look with dread, instead we can look with wonder at all the things, and we can imagine, because what we can imagine can come to pass. And so it's good for us to daydream. It's good for us to look to the future and see what might come into our lives. And then it's good for us to be personal in our wonder and to see the wonderful things that can happen in our lives individually, how we can help others, and how others can, and how we can accept help from others, because it's going to be coming at us, and it already is, from so many different directions. I heard you recently discussing with someone about the futuristic office equipment that's available, and things I had not heard of before. And I use a computer quite well, and other modern conveniences. But you're talking about things that were beyond my conception. So that's an example of how our lives are not standardized anymore, but anything can happen because so much is becoming available to us.
And I think in the whole course of all this, we need to go back to that to that biblical teaching of fear not. Don't be afraid. So often we're afraid. We're afraid of this. We're afraid of that. We're afraid that as we give up this, then it's going to damage us as a society, or as a race, or as a group. And in fact, some things do cause some damage. But in many, many instances, I think we have to give up our fears, and give up our fears and our worries about the fact that change is in the midst of where we are, and that's a good thing.
Yes, and when we know that in our hearts, then we react differently, and we send out a totally different energy, which makes a difference in the world. It makes a difference because, in truth, we're all one. In truth, we touch upon the lives of every other person.
And as we touch, then we connect. And as we connect and let go of our fears and let go of the things that separate us, we become one with the power and the presence of the divine that leads and guides and directs us in ways that we could never even imagine.
Yes, and then we dare be ourselves. We dare do what we want to do instead of forming our lives along the lines of what we think other people expect of us. Well, what other people expect of us is to be alive and alert and awake and wonderful human beings. And if someone puts a preconceived idea on what we should and shouldn't do, that's not our problem. We just need to live our lives fully and joyously and do the things that we know in our hearts that we need to do. And I'm speaking not only of you and me, but the people who are listening to us, to dare be different, to dare do that which you see needs to be done instead of what we think. Because there's two perceptions there. We go through life on a perception. So we have the perception of what we think other people expect of us, and then we have our own perception of what we would like to have happen and how we think. Very often they don't coincide. Very often the perception is totally different. So it's as if in a sense, we're spinning our wheels. So we need to go through life on our own perception of a life filled with awe and wonder. And as we do that, then we're living from the highest within ourselves.
And that's the goal, isn't it?
Exactly.
To live from our highest and our best. And if we live from our highest and our best, sometimes it means letting go of some old ideas and thoughts. And in just the last few minutes that we have here, I think it's important for us to say to our viewers, as we say so often, we're not telling people to change their religion or their faith tradition. We're just sharing our ideas and our concepts. And one of the magnificent things about the teaching that we embrace is that a fundamental part of it is take what you want and discount the rest. And so we would invite people to take what is useful and helpful to them and discard the rest. But out of the looking at life and the wonder of life, we really all need to come back to the fact that there are times in our lives, and especially in our spiritual lives, but in all aspects of our lives, where it is just going to be necessary for us to let go of some ideas and concepts that are outmoded and probably weren't true in the first place, and embrace something that is much more universal, much more unifying, much more tolerant, much more accepting, much more loving, and to measure our faith and to measure our lives against those things, and not hold on to some of the things that we've held on to just because somebody told us. And that goes for what I've told people and you've told people. I always say, don't ever say because Mike Costello said. So, and let go of those things.
Yes, and of course you don't really tell people what to do. You show people their options. And as we show people their options, then the person who's seeking help, if they use their own head to see what their options are and to review and to know in which direction to go, they'll see that very often there's no right or wrong way. It's just, what do they want in life? What do they want from this? I mean, should we take this job or this job or this job? Well, where do they want to go in their lives? Where do they want to live? How do they want to live? And it makes a big difference. But in the long run, it doesn't really matter a great deal. So it's a matter of what does that each individual want in their lives, and dare to live their life so they'll get what they want in life. And one reason for that is because we are so inspired by our guardian angel and by others of the angelic kingdom and those on the inner planes. And as we listen and as we pray and meditate, we can and ask for help. Then that help comes. No one else can ever know what help that individual is receiving. So we each have to follow our own inner guidance. When we do, we're ever so much happier. And so we don't understand which way to go. Just keep going. Mm-hmm. Just keep going.
Absolutely. And with that, we've reached the end of our time, and we hope that the information that we've shared with you has been useful, and we look forward to seeing you next time.